Binge eating. It is a hot topic in social media, but it's a hot topic generally, especially in the health and the fitness world. With regards to where binge eating can go, this is not a medical diagnosis conversation, but it is a conversation I'm going to have with you today with somebody that I've got that's been through their own journey and come out of the other end. And I'm hoping there's going to be a few golden nuggets inside of this that you, if you are struggling with something like this, if it's a beginning process, you could take some golden nuggets and implement them into your life and help yourself with this. But the medical advice that's not going to come from this, you may need to go and seek medical advice or attention through a qualified GP or professional. That being said, there's a story behind this conversation that I'm intrigued to know myself today, because my guest today is Hayden. Hayden's been through a journey himself that it's been inspirational to see. And I've very recently met Hayden, actually, funnily enough. And the second I saw what was going on in Hayden's life and where he is today, there was a story behind this whole conversation. And that's what I want to bring to you today, because you can tell there's been a story of struggle. And now there's a story of success that's being laid in front of him that he's leading the pathway for, let's say, for other people to pick up from where he may be able to educate them and help them move forward. So Hayden, welcome to Impact Your Evolution.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Not a problem, mate. So we've met recently, and the second that we did, I instantly picked up on this vibe, and I had to go and check of like what your story was all about. And the second I saw what was being posted, how you were posting, and the topic of conversation, I know for a fact that through looking through your Instagram and looking through social media, you generally tend to gravitate towards helping men struggling with binge eating and sort of that type of approach with how they're struggling with their health, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome stuff. So just so that I'm on the right page, I want to make sure that the story that we tell today is, I know for a fact that we can all say at some point we've probably had some kind of binge eating experience ourselves. And whether we've kind of self-managed that and we've got a hold of it to a point where we've been able to control the outcome of this and regain that whole sense of why we've been doing with those actions and those things that we've been doing. But for some people, that's not so straightforward. And I get that. And I do get, and I've worked with people over the years myself that have really said that I struggle to control quantity. I struggle to control the need and want to eat all the time. So rewind the clock a little bit. Tell me about your story. Tell me, way before you got to where you are today, what is the whole binge eating story behind you, Hayden, yourself?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I think for me, when I was a teenager, when I was probably 12, 13, maybe up to about 14, I was just a kind of normal weight kid, wasn't overweight, wasn't underweight. I was just a pretty normal looking kid. And then around 15 or 16, I think it was, if I can recall, I just suddenly ballooned in weight. And I wish I could pinpoint exactly what it was that made this change happen. I don't really know what it was, but all of a sudden, I just developed this awful relationship with food where I just piled on weight. I couldn't stop eating. And I did get pretty fat at one point. And it literally took me until probably 21 years old before I really started to, make some real progress and crack this problem. And don't get me wrong, like I didn't crack it at 21. I got in really good shape and then I ballooned up again. And then I got in really good shape and then I ballooned again. And I had this yo-yo diet of just constantly gaining the weight and then losing the weight. And just through trial and error, years and years of trying different things, I eventually got a hold of it. And I think it was just because in the end, I was like, I cannot take this anymore. And I know you're very big on accountability for yourself. And I think that's exactly what it became for me. I just had to take accountability of my actions and the fact that no one was making me do these things other than myself. So rather than try and make excuses about it, I actually just tried to fix the root cause of the problem. But it was a long process of this yo-yo dieting kind of thing, back and forth.
Yeah. So when you touch on the accountability approach with that, I think one of the things, especially my experience in probably the last 10, 12, 15 years of being a coach, the accountability side of things is more of a mindset shift with everything that we do. And you literally nailed it there. It wasn't more about the whole food in itself, but it was, why am I doing this? Why am I allowing my actions to be just passed by? Because it's too late by the time that decision's being made for me to reverse any effects of what I've just done. So it's kind
Yeah.
of the whole thing with accountability is grabbing yourself in the moment that's needed for you to make that conscious choice about what you do next.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what you explained there was you tried and it kind of, you had the rebound. You tried and you had the rebound. And I think everybody has to go through that at some point. I think everybody goes through, I mean, I still go through this now with the whole mental health side of things because nothing ever is as consistent as what we believe it to be when we think we've
No.
figured out that whole process of I don't want to say cured, but that mindset of this issue that I've got fixed. He never really is. I mean, there's a very high likely chance that you would likely experience a similar scenario if those accountability prompts that you use now would relapse because you're
Yeah,
just programmed to operate in those old ways.
for sure. And that's the thing, because like don't get me wrong, like inside, I am still that same guy who wants to do those things, who wants to eat that food. And it is a case of a bit of discipline to stop myself from doing these things, because I know that it's going to affect my health negatively. But I am no way coming on here and saying that I have 100% fixed this problem. And I think anyone who ever goes out and says, I never feel, like you say, you struggle with mental health, I've also struggled with my mental health. Anyone who says that they've completely fixed it and that they never have a bad day and they never slip up, in my opinion, is a liar, because no matter how good you get at something, you're always going to somehow regress back into it eventually, to some degree anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of study that's been put behind this with regards to old patterns being ingrained in just it's the memorable programming that we associate our comfort area with, and how we kind of revert back to that when we're not checking all of those boxes that keeps us in that forward progressing mentality. And these
Yep.
can all sound like big words, big topics, confusing conversations. And I get that. But for somebody that needs to go, well, actually, you know what? I have been struggling with how I've been treating my diet for very many years. Um, for you and yourself, you said that this started at around the age of like 14, 15, and then you had
Mm.
that whole 21 years old. It was in and out, in and out, in and out. And you tried it for a long time. Well, in that process, what was the key factor? Because I think the thing is for a lot of people, because what I'm trying to lean towards here is you see a lot of people take that moment in time now where they go, I'm going to get really accountable towards my actions. And I'm going to, whether it be they sign up with a coach, we've both coached I mean, I'm a coach, you're a coach. It may
Yeah.
be that they just attend a gym and get really, really consistent with doing that. Whatever the modality is that they use to create this level of accountability, they go, they create a result, they feel fantastic, they get to that goal. And this is the thing that I find with a lot of people where they struggle is they get to the goal and then they have no sense of purpose beyond reaching that target, that goal.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, when you've reached it, your mind instantly reverts back to, well, now I've got to the goal, I can go back to the way that I was before. So
Yeah.
we start overeating again, or we start not paying attention to the mental cues that we've been helping ourselves with to get better. All of these, the outcome is very, very similar in all of these different scenarios. And this is that whole yo-yo effect there where people have with, and it can be everything that down to health that you can really attest to what this really looks like moving forwards. But for yourself, the first time you got in shape and then you had that first rebound, I can pretty much I'm gonna bet money on this at this point. You would have
Yeah.
had also a mental health rebound at that point as well, because you'd have been saying to yourself, "What's happened?" Because I feel like I conquered the beast, but now all of
Yeah.
a sudden that beast's back. What happened for you at the first attempt?
God, it's really hard to remember because it was so long ago and it was a long process. It wasn't something I just figured out in 6 months and that's it. I dropped weight in 6 months. No, it took me years and years of figuring it out. But I think I always hear about successful people talking about when they're trying to achieve a goal and then they get to the goal and you think, oh, when I get to the goal, everything's going to be great and I'm going to be happy and that's it. Oh, I've made it. And then you get it and it's like, well, what now? And I think that's kind of what happened to me a little bit with the body transformation. Like I achieved it. It may sound a bit superficial and vain, but when I was younger, I was always like, oh, I want to have a six pack. Just once, I want to have a six pack and see what it feels like to have abs. Now I look at that and I think it's stupid, but back then that was all I kind of focused on. So when I got that, I'd worked so hard for it. And then it was just like, I've got it, but I don't feel any different. I didn't feel different mentally. And I feel like this is the problem with a lot of things. Like you see it often with bodybuilders and things like that, who put themselves through such difficult, restrictive regimes to get into a certain level of shape. They get there and they're like that on stage for one day, and they never look like that again, and it messes with their head. And that's exactly how I felt. So it's hard to remember exactly what it felt like at the time, but I do remember getting there, and then I hadn't fixed this. So whatever the body looked like, it didn't actually matter. And I truly believe that all of it has to be a shift in perspective and shift in mindset. Otherwise, you're going to get the physique and nothing will change, in my opinion. And that was definitely me.
100%. So I've been in a similar scenario, and you kind of touched on the whole, I've never been a bodybuilder per se, but what I generally tend to, the way I like to approach health and fitness is I will never say that I can produce or deliver something that I wouldn't have experienced myself. So I always come from a background in coaching where I've put myself through a process that I fully understand because I've lived through it. And I think that's because of my whole reason as to why I'm in the health industry is because of mental health and what it can do for you just all round in life. But without going into my story on that side of things, when I was battling through my mental health and I became quite fixated on food and diet. And this is kind of, I didn't tell you this, but this is where I was going to bring this conversation today, because I kind of experienced a similar scenario. I put myself through a dieting phase before I became a physical coach. I put myself through a dieting phase to experience what it would be like for others doing extreme fat loss and wanting to get below single digit numbers. So hitting that, get below double digit numbers and hitting those single digit numbers and what it would really feel like and the time and commitment that was involved. Now, I did do this, and I think the lowest I got measured was like 5.6% body fat. And it was crazy. Wow. It was ridiculously lean. There was multiple injuries that just because I wasn't recovering. But the whole relationship that I had with food at that point became very obsessive, very obsessive. So it was not so much, and this is the truth that I'll put out there actually, and I don't think I've actually really spoke about this on social media before. So when I set my diet up back in those days where it was very regimented, like you said, you take those regimented diets and it becomes a chicken, broccoli and rice kind of diet. It's stereotypical bodybuilder stuff. Clean eating gets you where you need to be, but you can actually live a lifestyle of flexibility just as easily as well, and you don't have to sacrifice all the enjoyment in food. But that whole process of making food boring and easy, it's kind of like it removes another stress to think about. And I get why people do it, because I've done it myself to see the result. Now, yes, the result was there. I saw the results. It was pretty much like what you say. I wanted to see abs. It was a full-blown 8-pack. There was veins in places I didn't know I had veins. It was just like, it was ridiculous. And again, like what you said, I wasn't happy. I got to that point and I just kept thinking, well, now I'm this lean in this size. I feel like I need to be a little bit bigger now. I don't want to be this small and this lean. It kind of had the opposite effect. So then the play on diet for me was my weekends, where I'd be so restrictive in the week, and I was restrictive, and it was very, very pretty much the same food, bulk batch cooked, like out of Tupperware. I was the stereotypical fitness person. And looking back now, it's that whole maturing in the health industry, let's say, is knowing a bit more about food and lifestyle. But back then it was a naivety to think that's how I needed to do these things. My weekends would consist of me massively overindulging in literally everything that I would restrict myself with. And I'm talking like I'd create a 4-hour window on a weekend. And this is usually every Sunday, a 4-hour window from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. And I'd allow myself to eat anything. And I can guarantee you now, every Sunday I'd go around to the local supermarket, literally like, one of the express ones. And I'd walk in and there was a set number of things I'd buy every single week. And I'd have them. I'd feel like death after I'd eaten it. And then it would be this whole mindset process of, I need to work this off again now. I need to push myself through that mentality of, well, I did this yesterday. Now I've got to fix that come Monday morning. And it got to a point where it was, again, not medically diagnosed or anything like that, but I was very aware how I was treating my diet in this process. Now, I probably wouldn't say there was a binge scenario there, but I was very aware how I'd set my diet up to be able to be on track in the week and then kind of this do whatever I wanted with this window of time on a Sunday. That did for me the same as what it did for you there. And I ended up then regaining a bunch of weight, which wasn't bad weight that I'd regained because I needed to regain some weight because my body fat percentage was just too low for health reasons, regardless.
Yeah.
But the thought that what you came to mind when you said that is that I didn't look how I didn't feel how I wanted to look when I saw what I wanted to see. So chasing that whole, that mirage that you think is out there that you're running towards all the time, and it's like, I'm going to get this holy grail of moments in life.
Doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. And I think when you kind of realize that, that's probably one of the things that's actually kept you more accountable now, knowing that you're not yo-yoing in and out of it and life is a bit more flexible. I mean, realistically looking at it, that's a realistic scenario.
Yeah. Right. And you say though there that you didn't really binge, but you pretty much did because you were restricting yourself the entire week. And then on that weekend, you're just going crazy for 4 or 5 hours. And that is pretty much, I think, a lot of the time where people who binge eat comes from is severe restriction. They restrict so much that it's like, I can't do this anymore. I have to just gorge on all this food. That kind of sounds like what you were doing.
More than likely, potentially more than likely. I mean, I think it is. I think a lot of this whole health and fitness and what's out there in the world today, I think there's so much for people to try and digest. When you get to have these honest conversations like this, it even brings things up for me that I'd forgotten about in my own journey and things that I've not even spoken about, because I think we all try to focus on an area that we feel very familiar with. Like mine is the reason why I do all of the health things is because it allows me to be proactive with the business. It allows me to build mental resilience. Yours now will be an element of controlling how diet impacts your lifestyle and how then lifestyle then impacts your diet and that relationship with food and all of those aspects. But I think when you can share stories on physical experiences that people can relate to, I think the meaning has a whole new impact on how it can change somebody else's life, because it's not just something that's recited out of a textbook or it sounds great on social media this week. Because I think for anybody that gets to experience something and then gets to share on that experience, you leave something there that somebody else can relate to, that they can kind of follow in the footsteps of, that gives them that sense of being accountable and that self-confidence that they have to kind of, because I had no confidence trying to achieve all of this. It was just, you kind of followed in the footsteps of people that you looked up to or you aspire to at the time. And then all of a sudden you kind of see those goals become your reality. And then you're left with that, well, what do I do next? Like, where do I look to next, or who do I look to for the next inspiration? And you kind of like, you're lost in this process of what is it that I'm really doing this work towards to benefit. So my caveat to the question that the whole binge eating and yo-yoing for you really is, when you, I don't want to say got to the point of feeling like you're in control, because you've already like alluded to the fact that you still have those conversations in your mind now where you could easily just flip the switch and that's it. You could just go on a crazy binge.
This second,
that's it. Just go for it. But it's more about, in the process of discovering yourself to understand what all this really means for you, what does it give you in the sense of self-confidence now, knowing that you've experienced something, you've taken an action, and you've then taken the feedback, whether it be positive or negative, regardless. You have to learn in the process of trying to change these scenarios, which is why I'm assuming you've got very good at managing where you currently are right now for a length of time. So what is it that you learned along the way? Because I can go on forever about mental health things that I learned.
It's so hard to pinpoint stuff. It's like, because like you say, I've struggled with mental health literally my whole life as well. And I think a lot of the, a lot of the binge eating stuff actually comes from things that maybe happened to you when you were a child and things like that, trauma that you maybe don't even know about. And then you look back and you think, because when you were saying about when did it start, and it was like 14, 15, when I was just starting to become really self-aware of how my life was and what was going on in my life. And it started then. So I look back and I think maybe it has something to do with that. But I think for me, now, because I have a control on it to a pretty good degree, and I don't think I will ever, balloon in weight again and get fat again or anything like that. To know that I've conquered that through sheer discipline and refusing to just accept that this is the way I'm going to be. And I'll just tell you a quick story, if you don't mind, about just something
Go for it.
that kind of realized when I look back now. I'm like, this was bad. It was I was living in Germany for a little while, and I was staying with my sister, and there was this all-you-can-eat buffet there. It's a Chinese buffet. And I went there one day, and I ate so much food that I left, and I had to go to, we were trying to go to hospital. I had to go to a pharmacist because there was nothing open, because I had shooting chest pains. The pain was so bad, I genuinely thought I was having a heart attack, and I was probably 24, 25. And that happened, and I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing to myself? And I think because when I was younger, people just made fun of it, not in a nasty way, but my family were always like, oh, Hayden can just eat all day long. He's like the human dustbin. He'll finish off your food. And we just kind of made a joke about it. But I actually look back and think those jokes where people didn't necessarily intend to be malicious in any way, it kind of plays into that thing of, you're a binge eater, you're just a guy who can eat all day long. And I think that really has an effect. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to remember what the actual point of your question was. And I've gone off on a bit of a tangent. I can't remember. What was the point again?
The thing is that this is what I love about having these conversations, is because you start to uncover the roots behind why this all really happens to us, why we experience these journeys to begin with. So I'm more than happy for you to continue with the story of you being in Germany and eating this Chinese and experiencing this thought process, because as you were saying that, I was taken back to my whole mental health battle, and you were literally reciting exactly the same story that I had going through my head at the time, just different outcomes.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
so you were going through, you're in Germany, you're eating. It's self-identity. That's the thing, is it? Because people in the family had been saying, Hayden, you're a human dustbin. Hayden will finish your food. Hayden will just put this in front of him and he'll eat it. That's what I can relate to, because I'd grown up through my 20s and being told certain things, hearing certain things, put a frame of identity as to who I was. And it was based on other people's views and opinions of me. And I think that's when you start to lose yourself in this. If you're already in this struggle that you kind of don't understand yourself, yours being a binge eating process, mine being just an identity thing. I didn't know who I was, and I was kind of taking these actions to fulfill other people's needs, wants, desires, and all of these other things, just to be not validated, but I guess seen in a way. And if you're kind of seen as and identified as the family human dustbin that will eat anything that's put in front of them, and he just doesn't stop, and it's, oh, you've got hollow legs, you can put so much food away. Similar conversations have happened for me in the past, and I think when you do lose yourself in that self-identity process and you're trying to figure it out, like you said, when you got to 14, 15, you started to become self-aware. I didn't become self-aware until I went through the whole struggle of what my mental health battle was. And I'm going to ask you back on this podcast to have a conversation about that one day, because I think I can clearly tell there's definitely another story behind the whole binge eating thing and the whole mental health side of things.
Huge.
I'd love to have you back to be able to talk about that another day. But sticking with the topic on the binge eating side of things, is that identity that the people around you, that trusted people that you surrounded yourself with, it kind of installs that whole process of, well, if they've told me I can keep eating and they've told me that I can keep doing these things, then where is my self-control? Because I'm being told that this is a positive thing.
Yeah. I made a video about this the other day, and I was saying about how when you surround yourself with your family and your friends, people who love you and they genuinely want the best for you, they won't necessarily call you on things that you are doing that are actually impacting your life in a negative way. Like, to someone who cares about you, they don't really care if you're a bit overweight, so like if you're 30, 40 pounds overweight, they don't care. They just want you to be happy. And they, in some way, it's not intentional, but I feel like it actually enables your behavior, like you were just saying, because they're just saying those things and they don't see it as a bad thing. You just end up thinking, oh, well, I'll just stay like this because, everyone says I'm all right. When actually you kind of have to look at yourself and think, what do I want? Not
Mm.
what is okay for other people or what other people expect from me, but what do I want with my life? What's going to make me happy and make me fulfilled?
So
And I feel like until you
I'm
figure
just
it
going to
out,
literally jump in on this one because
yeah,
this is what you see when relationships begin. You
mm,
always see that somebody, and I've seen this in so many people over the years, is they get very self-centered, and I'm not using self-centered as a negative. They get self-centered
mm,
to understand who they are, actions that they take, and they produce this remarkable outcome for themselves. But they've done
yeah,
this as maybe a single individual. Then they meet a partner. They go through that 6-month honeymoon period, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, I've gained a few pounds, or I'm because we're going out for food more regularly now, or we've got like a weekend thing that happens, and lifestyles change, and I completely
yeah,
get that. But when you have that person on the other end that is then saying, and like you were saying there, it's, oh, it's okay, I don't mind.
yeah,
It enables you to just keep making those decisions that keep putting you in harm's way all the time. And I
absolutely.
fully back this because I've seen it so many times happen with people that have dedicated so much time for themselves, not to themselves, but for themselves, because it's a very big difference. When
Mm,
they've dedicated that commitment of being a better individual for themselves and they've seen the progress in life happen, and I'm not saying that this is a relationship problem, but it kind of, like you said, it enables a different way of thinking, that it enables that different behavior pattern for when somebody starts saying to you, well, let's get a takeaway this Friday night, or let's go out for a meal, and all of a sudden every week that's happening and it's a million miles
yeah.
away from where you've been living. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, it is. And I've experienced that myself. Like, and it's not to say like you say relationships are bad or anything like that, but I do think like there is a point of, especially when it's new and you do get a bit comfortable, and you just think, oh, I've kind of got them now, so I don't have to be at my best anymore. Um, and I definitely have put on weight in, or let myself go when things like that happen, and then I kind of change that mindset later to I always want to be the best I can possibly be for my partner. Like, I don't want to let myself. I want them to be proud of who they're with, and it. In fact, I should work harder to maintain that the person that they were attracted to when they got with me. That's what I want to keep. I don't want it to be, oh, they were attracted to something and now I've become something else.
Mm.
And I feel like that's where a lot of times it goes wrong because people just, I get a bit
It is that
lazy, I
it's
guess.
that comfort enabling behavior changes the whole perspective of where it goes. So again, like you're
Yeah,
saying there, when you've got a relationship, you've got a significant other that's affirming this behavior that's been happening, you've got family
yeah,
around you that's then affirming the behavior that's been happening too. You only find it second nature to be going, oh well, it's okay for me to go and eat all of this food and not really
yeah.
think anything of it because I've been told for so long that it's okay.
Yeah, exactly that. And because you're surrounded by people saying it's okay. And that's why I truly believe that, and I've experienced this lately with my business and with financial goals and things like that I've set for myself. I never used to understand how things were possible. And now, because I've surrounded myself with people who are achieving the things I want to achieve and thinking in a different way, my entire mindset has shifted. And I feel it's exactly the same when it comes to health and fitness and losing weight or whatever it is that you're trying to do. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are saying it's okay, or they live a life where they don't mind being severely overweight and that to them is fine, you're just going to become like that because they are. I'm sure you've heard it. They always say you're the product of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and I truly believe that that is the case.
So you've been a teen into your early 20s that struggled with managing food quantity.
Yeah,
You've been a pro wrestler. How
yeah,
did
for a little
that
bit.
come
Yeah.
about? Was that part of the whole process, or was that just something that was just a completely different part of your identity that you wanted to chase?
Well, I'll go off on a little bit of a tangent here, tell you a little bit more of a story if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Um, so basically, from the time I was about 14 years old, I got into amateur dramatics and loved performing. It was the first thing I'd ever done that anyone said I was good at. I'd never been good at anything. And then all of a sudden I started this and people were like, you're really good at this. You should pursue this. I thought, all right, maybe I'll pursue this. I'll be an actor. So all of my acting idols went to prestigious drama schools. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to drama school. Now, I don't know if you know anything about drama schools, but they're very, very, very hard to get into, very difficult to get into. And it took me 4 years of auditioning before I gained a place. 4 years straight of constant going back, getting rejected. Eventually, I did get in. I did 3 years there. literally 9 till 6 every day, very intensive training, some of the hardest stuff I've ever done. And actually graduated in 2020 when COVID was going on. And I'd really started to fall out of love with the process. I enjoyed performing, but I didn't enjoy the process of becoming an actor when it started to become real and become a profession. So I kind of had a bit of a mid-20s crisis and was like, right, what do I do now? This has been my life since I was 14. What do I do? And I'd always been such a fan of WWE when I was a kid. Always been a fan of pro wrestling. And I'm living in Nottingham now, and there was a really good school here. So I was like, I'm not getting any younger. I'm pretty athletic. I used to do parkour and free running when I was a kid. I've always been able to do flips and stuff like that. And I mean, I was in decent shape. Got the performing background, so I thought, why don't I give pro wrestling a go? I reckon I could pick it up quick. And I did. And I was trained for like a year. Had my first match after just over a year. And then I literally only did it for about 6 months. But I was going up and down the country. I got to go to Italy. Got to go to various different places around the UK, wrestling all different shows. Met people who I used to watch on TV and started to become friends with them. So that was pretty cool. And I think for me, I'm a natural introvert. I genuinely am an introvert. I don't like being around a lot of people. I'm not the center of attention, but I loved performing. I still do, and I miss it now because I don't do it now. And I think it was just another side of me. And I think because when I was a kid, I was so opposite. I didn't have the confidence to do those things. I couldn't be the center of attention. And it was kind of like now living what I always wished I could have been when I was a kid. And now I feel like I can do it now because I'm in a better place. So that's how I kind of ended up there.
That's talk about chasing something that's, I mean, that's a childhood, full-blown childhood dream. That is for a lot of boys and lads growing up. I mean, that's a childhood dream to be able to do something like that, and then meet those people that you knew along the way that you then become friend with. It's fulfilling something. But then, like you said, you did it for 6 months. What then brought you into the whole fitness world?
Well, at the time, I was kind of having a break. I was with my previous ex-girlfriend at the time, and we decided we were going to go traveling for a little bit because I was coming up to age 30, and we wanted to go to Australia, but the visa stopped once you hit 30, so we had to go now. So we were like, right, we'll go now. I'll carry on training while I'm in Australia. There's some training schools over there. Ended up going there. I didn't go back to training because the schools were too far away. And then when I came back, I just felt like I'm done with it. It's something I wanted to do. I've ticked it off, but it's not the thing. And that's what I was always struggling to figure out. What is the actual thing that genuinely ignites my fire? What am I most passionate about? And I think because of the life I've lived and because of the struggles I've been through and growing up without a father and not having a role model and things like that, I think it really made me think of, I want to help other men who have been in my situation, if not worse, and help them get to some level of where I've been because I know what the other side of it is like. And I feel like that to me is a much better mission or journey, whatever you call it, than being a pro wrestler. I feel like I can have a lot more of an impact and it's something that means so much to me. So that's why I ended up becoming a certified personal trainer and started coaching people and getting into this kind of line of work. It was just like a natural progression, really. Or in fact, it was probably something I should have done a long time ago, but I wasn't ready mentally for it. And I think I probably would have failed if I tried before. So, yeah.
That's full-blown fulfilling purpose. And I'm all about fulfilling purpose. Again, we'll have the mental health chat on another podcast another day. I think that will be not just beneficial as a person listening in, but I think when you're able to, you mentioned about being in an environment, surrounding yourself with certain people that help you progress in certain ways. And I always find that if you are an individual that struggling with binge eating, mental health, how you're looking after yourself, and all of these aspects of things, is look to the people outside of the surroundings that you've currently got, because I can guarantee you now is that there's people out there that are doing things that will, even if it's just one step further forwards than where you currently are, they're good people to, even if you're not going to just mimic them, follow in the footsteps to get you moving out of where you feel trapped. Because binge eating, I know for a fact, is huge when it comes down to how people treat their diets. And I think that word binge these days, because you hear it in everything, you binge watch
Yeah.
TV, you binge scroll
Yeah.
social media, you binge eat food. I think the word binge in itself has actually had the power that it actually supposed to bring. It's been decreased because everything's binge worthy these days.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
even to the point where fitness, you could say that people binge on fitness to fill a void of something else.
Yeah.
So when you look at like how our personal habits and how we conduct ourselves and our actions that we generally take day to day, if you've got a set number of people around you that's your day-to-day life, whether they're work colleagues, family members, relationship partners, whatever it may be, and you're stuck in this little world of, well, I've kind of produced this and I don't really know how to get out of it. Look outside of that circle for a split second. And this is what I'm going to encourage people listening to do, is to look outside of that circle for a split second. If you've got a friend that has struggled with food and they're doing something that you might not fully understand how they're doing it just yet, just go and ask them, what was the first thing that you did that helped you get outside of this? Because I feel like I'm trapped in this environment right now. And it might be, like you said, we've touched on so many things. It could be a relationship that's made you feel comfortable. It could be how you see yourself. It could be how you identify from what people have told you. All of these other aspects will help you start laying down those first cobblestones that you can start walking on. That's going to give you the formation to be able to start building that path that you can then travel your own journey on. Because that's what's happened for me with mine is I had no idea. I mean, I qualified when I was like 18 through to 21. And I was supposed to have gone and done a scholarship in the States for to be an NFL coach, but I couldn't do it because I blew my knee out and I couldn't do all the physical and practical stuff. My life then went into a different direction with a different trade, and it was because of my mental health battle that I ended up back in the fitness industry. I think the fitness industry is an industry, and I find it a very interesting one because you've kind of got two aspects of people. You've got people that want to be seen because of what they can do for themselves. And then you've got people on the other hand that have been through something like yourself, like myself, where we've experienced a journey, we've experienced something that we want to be able to leave as a legacy for other people to be able to pick up from and say, right, my experience of Hayden, my experience of Andy led me to regain self-control of whatever it was that I was struggling with and laid the groundwork for me to be able to start moving forward. And I think that's the thing about the fitness industry, is that it's very dynamic in what it produces. And I think the individuals that are out there that do struggle need to look for those, I don't want to say a role model, but just somebody that they can say that there's some footsteps that I could follow. So I have a closing out little tradition on this where I ask whoever I got on as a guest, if you could rewind the clock 10 years and give yourself a piece of advice 10 years prior to where you are now, but you know what you know now, what would you do moving forwards that would change the 10 years in front of you?
That is a tough question.
I get that answer every time.
It genuinely is, because we all think, oh yeah, I know what I'd say to myself, but it's easier said than done. I would say, if I could go back and know everything I know now, I would say get help earlier. And I don't just mean with fitness, I just mean everything. Like, there is
I think a lot of people see asking for help as such a huge negative, but it's the thing that speeds up the process of everything so much more.
Honestly, if you want to get, and like I say, I don't mean to relate to business, I know this is about Binge eating that, but all the things I've learned about business, about wealth, about how to do these things, yes, I could have maybe figured them out on my own, but I got there so much quicker by just investing into myself. And yes, it costs money, but you either pay with your money or you pay with your time. Which one would you prefer to do? I would much rather save 10 years of struggle, depression, sadness, rebound dieting to get the help early on and invest whatever it costed me to know that for the next 10 years of my life, smooth sailing, because I figured it out early. So that's probably what I would say to myself. Sort your mindset out.
I fully agree. I mean, I think we all learn something as we move through this and try to navigate whatever this storm is that we feel at certain points in our lives. But whatever the battle is, I think the first thing that you have to be, I think the first thing that comes up on that accountability list is knowing when to ask for the right help from the right people at the right time.
Absolutely.
Because I think if you don't, you are trying to battle something you have no concept of. and you're in an education phase as well as an implementation phase, which becomes then very confusing because you feel like every try is the kickback that you get that's negative is all on you. And it's not. It's just that you need to kind of lean on people that have been there and gone through certain things that can get you 10 times further forwards than where you currently are, 10 times faster than what you feel, than what you physically feel like you could get there. So that in itself, and I know I'm going to kind of throw this out there because I like to be the kind of person that goes against the grain with people. It would be stereotypical of a coach to say that. And it would be because, so this is the thing that I want to say. It would be stereotypical of a coach to say, go get help. Because as a coach on the other end of it, you're there saying, I want to work with the people that are struggling. And I completely get that. But it's the truth, because you said that you've had help, you've sought help, mentors, whatever you want to see, and however you want to form that whole scenario. I've done exactly the same. I've had people that have coached me in business, people that have mentored me, and just generally speaking in life. I've got good people that surround me now, but that's only an evolution of what I've been through and what I needed to seek outside of that circle that I was mentioning earlier on, because that's where all of the answers lie. Is you've got to get outside of the environment that you're currently in to be able to see how you move forward with who surrounds you to be able to move forward.
I genuinely think that's it. And I don't even think it's like, I think as a coach, if you don't believe in coaching, how can you kind of sell it if you don't even believe in it yourself? But I do genuinely believe that the best thing I got from investing in coaches is being around other people who want the same thing. So you just think differently. If you're surrounded by people who have a negative mindset on money or believe that you can't make a certain amount of money, then that is what you start to believe. And then someone shows you a different path, or they show you a new method that you haven't tried before to lose fat or gain muscle or whatever, your perspective changes. So I genuinely believe, I know what you're saying, it is stereotypical of a coach to say get coaching, but I just truly believe it is the most beneficial thing you can do. And I've invested thousands that I didn't even have the money for at the time, but I thought, you know what, I'll make it work because it means that much to me.
And I think that's the thing. I think when you look at, like you say, just rounding out on the binge eating scenario, is you're a person that has been yo-yoed in and out of it. You've found a way that helps you now sustain, let's say, where you currently are. You've been at a leaner body fat percentage and you found that it wasn't the happiest place to be. You've been at a higher body fat percentage and you were certainly more unhappy than where you wanted to be. So you've kind of found this happy medium in the middle that allows you to be progressive moving forward, allows you to be healthy. So you know that at least you're going to be here for as long as possible. So you can do those things in life that hopefully life has those opportunities for.
Yeah.
With binge eating in itself then, and just to kind of cap out for the listener as we kind of move out of this conversation, for somebody that has tried, for somebody that has rebound, for somebody that has achieved something and then gone through that whole process numerous times over and over, if there was one thing, and I know you've just said about getting the help, but I think a lot of people, before they ask to seek help, they have to find something in themselves first that allows them to say, it's okay for me to seek help. If you could say it was a best friend, a partner, or a family member, and you knew that getting help was going to be one of those things that helps them get out of this scenario that they found themselves in, but they weren't in that place yet to kind of accept that that was the thing that they know they needed to do, because I've been that person personally when I've needed help and I've kind of gone, I'll figure this out, and I've left it a bit too long. If somebody had said to me, just do this to get the momentum moving, what would you say to them to get into that whole binge eating, not control, but just binge eating element of how they manage their food moving forward so that they can then take that step for a coach?
God, that's really difficult as well, because going from my experience and what has worked for me, if we're talking from my personal experience, some people say it might be obsessive. Some people say it takes you down a bad route. But for me, before I ever understood food and tracking calories and what calories were in food and stuff like that, I had no idea what I was eating. I had no idea what was good for me. I had no nutrition knowledge. I think the catalyst of sort of the beginning of the change was learning to understand food, learning to understand calories and things like that. Not get obsessed with it, but just for 30 days, track your calories. see what you're actually eating compared to what you think you're eating. And just because until you do it, you don't know. And some people will say that, oh, that's just going to create a more negative, relationship with food. But I believe if it does, then that was already in you originally anyway. And just doing that has then brought out the problem even more. If that's not you as a person, then I don't think it's going to make it worse. That's what helped me. I think if I'd never learned about tracking calories and understanding food and what is in it, I wouldn't be where I am. And you can say go and do intuitive eating and just eat a bit better, but I found that very, very hard.
You can still overeat on a good diet as well, though. That's the thing.
Exactly, yeah. That's what worked for me personally. But
no, I get it. It's like I say, there's no medical advice coming from this. It's just more the experience of somebody that has experienced a process and what worked for you. Because that's what I was intrigued to really understand is for somebody that was listening that kind of hopefully tunes into this, whether it be now or whether this be, the internet, it could be sometime in the future. And they say, well, this is a guy that's gone through some binge eating struggles. He's then been a pro wrestler at some point and then also then moved into being a coach. It's like the guy's clearly been somebody that's on a journey and he's figured out a way to manage this thing at the end. But what was that thing that helped him at the very, very beginning before I was ready to get help that I know that I need to kind of really push me down that trajectory that I can go? And it is. I think you're right, is you've got to understand what you put into your body, whether that be looking at labels, looking at calorie content, looking at the qualities of foods. Like you have to understand that it's not just see food and eat it. You have to understand what it is that it's doing for your body. And then you can worry about the ratios, the quantities, percentages, and all those sorts of things once you get a better understanding of, wow, I'm actually consuming a vast amount of food and I didn't realize that I was, because we're not actually processing at that point in time what it is that we're eating. So nailed it with regards to how you can start that. So is there anything that you would like to leave a listener in the sense of a nugget, a piece of information or whatever it may be, that if there is, awesome. If there isn't and you feel like you've said enough, perfectly fine.
I think all I would say is you will never change your body until you change your mindset. And I 100% believe that. You will not make changes in your life to a massive degree until you change your perception of what is possible. And until that happens, you probably won't get there.
Well, I've loved this. Absolutely loved it. Really appreciate this, Hayden. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
No. So where can people find you? So people, if they want to get hold of you, if they want to kind of follow your journey, what you've been doing, how you do those things and the conversations that you have on your social media, because they're very different to the conversations I have on mine, where can people find you?
I would say the best place is just on Instagram, and it's at Real Hayden Thomas.
Super simple, at Real Hayden Thomas. Right, we will have another conversation when we've got some time where we can pull up maybe a mental health journey conversation. But until then, you guys have an awesome day. I'll catch you in the next podcast. You know where to find me all over, wherever that may be. Coach Andy James on every platform that's out there. Impact Health Club as well.co.uk. You can find me on there. All the free resources that come along with everything that I provide is also inside of the website too. And also you can catch up with the weekly episodes on the radio that I'm on too. So until next time, you have an awesome day. I'll catch you soon. You take care.